I would own my own dream and leave corporate, and then I got into wholesaling and quite frankly got a little caught up in scaling. And I had a mentor, and he was amazing. He was bringing in 6-7 million a year in wholesaling. They were 20 different markets, and it looked really glamorous. And so I started scaling and realized very quickly that that's not at all what I wanted. I've never been an office person, even in corporate. I was in sales, and so I worked out of my house, and everything was virtual. So I hadn't been in an office in 18 years. I got an office, hired people. I hated being in an office. It was awful for me. So then I realized one of the things, I'd like to find silver linings. So one of the things out of COVID that I really got was it allowed me the time to kind of pull back and sit and really have some introspective time and think about what I really wanted and what I desired out of my business. And for me, scaling and having a really big organization wouldn't serve me well. I would be serving that organization or that entity, and I didn't want that. And everyone's dream is different. I honor that. I respect that. I think that's great. But for me, I wanted to keep it really small. So I've decided to keep it local within our community of Central Florida, and then Florida. I'm native Floridian. I'm a lover of everything Florida. So, but specifically, we typically focus on Central Florida, and it's myself. I have an acquisitions manager, and she is the point of contact with all sellers. And then I'm actually currently looking for a lead manager to help with follow-up. So to go in and just touch leads again, follow up, kind of like a second tier. And then when they get ready for the offers, punt them to my acquisitions manager and kind of train under her and bring her up. So that's a role I'm looking for, but I do have my acquisitions manager in place. I'm currently running dispositions and transactions coordinating, although the goal is for that to go away at some point. I'm not sure exactly when that will be, but that would be my goal in the relatively near future. And then I have a virtual assistant that's helping me partially with disposition. So she's taking some of the administrative tasks of dispositions away, like updating my buyer's website, sending out marketing, responding. I have a general email where things come in and people ask about the property. So she's responding to that. So that's super helpful, and that allows me to stretch my time a little bit better. But I will probably bring on someone to do the transactions coordinating and a lot of the marketing, at least part-time, later on in the year as well. So that's my internal team, I should say. Do you want me to go over my external team a little bit?
Yeah, and 1 second, because we've had a couple more people step into the room. So let me kind of reset really quick, and then you can carry on with that. So good evening, everyone. I'm Marlena Dates, and this is REI Live Orlando, Real Estate Networking and Deal Talk. And what we're trying to do is establish a presence here on Clubhouse and also live streaming in our local market, which we started to get rolling with last year with an in-person event that we did. But unfortunately, with COVID, things went a little sideways. In the meantime, the blessing of Clubhouse has arrived, and we've been having a lot of fun providing free content here and networking with people, connecting, even sometimes people putting together deals and, all sorts of great creative things. So we love it, and we're happy to be sharing it with each one of you that are listening, either here on Clubhouse or if you're checking out the live stream on any of our platforms. We've got it on Facebook and YouTube at this time. So anyhow, REI Live Orlando, we're in the greater Central Florida market, and we're going to try and host every single week somebody from our local market to come up and talk about real estate business, whatever strategy they might be using or a combination of strategies. We're going to have them talk a little bit about what they do and then answer any questions that the audience might have before opening it up to everybody in the audience to come on up on stage, introduce yourself, kind of virtually shake hands with everybody. Let us know if you've got a deal that you're working on, or maybe you've got a deal that you want to sell and you're looking for a buyer, maybe you're looking for a lender, or just a great connection for something that you don't know how to connect with the right person. So that's what we're going to be here for every week on Tuesday nights from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. If the room is super duper small and we all just want to take off, we might end it earlier, but it seems like, as long as we've got a few people in the room, we can keep it going pretty well. But I do want to encourage everybody, if you hit that plus button in the bottom of the screen, bring in anybody that you can think of that might benefit from being a part of this conversation or listening in. If you know any other local Orlando or Central Florida area real estate investors that are following you, or you can let them know about the live stream, then please do. But tonight we have Angie Aki with us, and she is a good friend of mine. We've known each other for a few years now, and she got started in wholesaling a little over a year ago. And she has come tonight to tell us a little bit about what she does in her wholesaling business and what's on the agenda for her this year. So Angie, I know you were talking about your internal team there, and if you want to just give a quick refresher of you and your background and some of the other things that you have going on now for anybody that didn't hear it, and then go ahead and jump back into talking about your team.
Sure, absolutely. So as far as a quick refresher, and I will keep this relatively brief for those of you that were on initially, but I got into real estate in 2017 and was working full time. And so I know sometimes people are like, oh, that's awesome, you double dipped, you had double income. It may sound really glamorous. It just did not feel glamorous at all. Looking back, I don't really know how I did it. But I had both running and then started focusing on wholesaling specifically in October 2018, and did very well very quickly and was able to quit my job in July of 2019 and made multiple six figures that year. So that's been really awesome. I love wholesaling. I've tried a little bit of other things, and I just really love wholesaling. I'm a salesperson by nature, so I like the process. It really fits with my personality. And, now I'm venturing into some other things, but we'll always have wholesaling as part of my business, a pretty large part of my business. So that is kind of a snapshot of me. And then we were talking about my internal team. So my internal team is very small by design. It's myself. I have a virtual assistant. I have someone that helps me part-time with a lead management, and then I have an acquisitions manager. So it's a really small team. I like it like that. That fits me and fits my lifestyle and my family really well. And then my external team is really important as well. So my external team is sometimes it is colleagues that I collaborate with within Orlando or Central Florida. So I have colleagues that I collaborate with on deals. I have colleagues that I collaborate with as far as I consider them business partners or business colleagues. So for instance, I know Marlena and I will hop on the phone all the time and say, hey, or we'll send messages on Facebook or whatever. Hey, what's working? Or what do you think about this? Or, hey, we're not getting the ROI on this marketing method. What are you doing? What are you seeing here? And I love that. That's one of my favorite things about entrepreneurship and the community that I feel like I've been graced with and just surrounded by an amazing community, because everyone is willing to share and give and say what works. And so I consider, a lot of people my external team, my colleagues and business partners, then I have people that I do deals with. I've partnered on deals with people for purchases and things like that. And then my title company is a huge part of my external team. They are amazing and I love them, and they do so much. They go above and beyond. They negotiate down liens for me if needed, and they really do a ton. So when I am working with them, and sometimes I'm not able to, depending on the situation, but when I'm working with them, everything is smooth and amazing. And then people, as far as an external team, also people that I'm purchasing lists from. So some of our vendors, I coordinate and collaborate with some hard money partners and private lenders, so that if someone says, hey, I really want this deal, but I need a lender, I have the lenders available for them, and then some contractors as well. So it's it's been really great. And my external team, honestly, I think is really important, or as important as my internal team.
Awesome. And thank you so much for going into detail about that, because I think so many people, when they're getting started, even with wholesaling, they're not really sure how to start out with kind of the idea of building it as a business. And you have a key person in each role in your business, or you're actively planning to bring somebody into one of those roles. And I love that. So, everybody is always interested in, what kind of marketing everybody's doing when you're getting results. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing for your marketing.
Okay, so I just made some more changes today. Marketing and it's crazy. I majored in marketing. I feel like it is like the ever-changing beast, because it's always, in my opinion, and Marlena, hop in, correct me if you think I'm wrong, it's always changing. Like you can't just set it and forget it. Constantly you're going through and figuring out what's working, what's not, why you're not getting leads from this anymore when you were, and vice versa. So for marketing, I will tell you what we were doing a little bit ago, kind of what changed, what we went to, and now we've made some changes again. And so that, because I really want to help those of you that are newer in the group to understand that it is an ever-changing process. So we were doing primarily text messaging, and the platform we were using, there are different carrier rules, and deliverability rates kind of took a pitfall. I was trying to think of a really nice way to say that. But deliverability rates and response rates really took a nosedive. And so I had to look at it and say, oh my gosh, we were getting a fraction of the response and the ROI that we were getting before. And so I kind of started out in direct mail. And I like direct mail. It is so expensive, and it took up a lot of my budget. So when COVID happened, especially, so I had already tiered back in direct mail. When COVID happened, I really, really cut back and do very little direct mailing now. So I was primarily doing text messaging, and I did dabble in PPC for a little bit. I didn't get a huge ROI on it. I was patient, because with marketing, you really do have to spend time. You have to be patient. You have to see where you're getting your ROI, and you can't jump from one thing to another every month. So realize I'm kind of giving you a bird's eye view of what has happened, and it's not like, I highly recommend you do not hop around, but spend the time and invest in marketing and see if it works for 3 to 6 months or so. And if it doesn't, then make the necessary changes. But so then earlier this year, we were doing text messaging and then some cold calling primarily. So those were our two. Text messaging kind of fell off the map for us. And so we beefed up our cold calling. And then also throughout that, I went through a very long, lengthy process of actually getting or negotiating with radio stations. So I now have a radio commercial airing. I am still trying to parse out the ROI on that one. So that is to be continued. I'd be happy to provide results once I have them a little bit more specifically. But then we went from a part-time to really, in essence, a full-time caller. And then we had our text messaging. Well, I was thankful these panels for wholesaling, and we were on there, and it was 3 or 4 of my colleagues, and we were talking about marketing, which I love stuff like this, because we were talking about marketing, and I said, well, my text messaging has taken a nosedive and we're not getting a good ROI. And my buddy was on the call, and he's like, what? No, we're getting a great ROI. Like, what the heck? Who are you using? So I called him. I literally called him. I texted him that night and said, do you have time to talk in the morning? He said, yes. It was already like 9:30. I called him in the morning and said, hey, who are you using? He told me. I looked into it. I switched that week because we weren't getting a good ROI. So now that we've switched, we've been with them for probably close to 2 months. Our ROI is back up to where it was. And so we're dropping our cold calling back. down because those are long-term, those are really cold when you get those leads. So they take a lot of nurturing, and we haven't been able to convert those as quickly. So we're going back, right, because you only have your marketing budget is X. And if you don't have a marketing budget, I recommend that you have a marketing budget. But so we're reallocating those resources to amp back in text messaging. And then I'm redoing my radio commercial because I don't love it. We're not getting the response that I would like. So I'm redoing that as well. So right now we're primarily text messaging. I bumped back down to part-time cold calling actually earlier today. And then radio. And then I've done Facebook ads before. I think I'm going to revisit them. So we will see. That's a maybe. That's a question mark for me.
Very interesting. So I know we had talked a while back about your radio ads, and you were just kind of having some trouble finding local stations that you can negotiate something that was reasonable with them. So, this is just my own personal curiosity, but can you tell me a little bit more about how that ended up working out for you?
Well, it ended up working as far as the process for negotiating.
Yeah, because I know you were really struggling and almost kind of ready to throw up your hands with it, but obviously you carried forward with it, which I think is awesome. So I'm curious how it worked out.
Yeah. So I am nothing if not persistent. So anyone that knows me, or if you, if you get to know me, you will know I'm extremely persistent. So I bought a course in essence on radio ads, and I'm still not convinced of the return on investment for that, to be honest. But I was convinced because radio is not something that everyone is doing. So I wanted to do something different. And so I went in, and I negotiated with stations for, it was over 6 months. I would have to look back. I want to say it was probably closer to 9 months. So I started with 3 stations, picked them based on the QM, which is the total audience, picked them and looked at the audience. And so we picked 3. And then I started negotiating. And to me, it's really funny because the person that I ended up advertising with is I had great rapport. One of the guys, we have amazing rapport. They couldn't work with me what I needed on price, and they couldn't work with me on the time frame. So I only wanted my ads to run 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and they wouldn't stay in that window. So that's a deal breaker for me. And then I had another guy that we had great rapport, but he just wasn't really willing to go back to his manager to get approval for everything. And it was always why they couldn't do it. So the person that I think she played hardball in the beginning the most. I'm like, we don't have great rapport. I don't think this is going to work. That's who I ended up advertising with. And what I love about it, I love her. I think she's great. She's giving me great advice. She's providing feedback on my commercials. She's sending me multiple different things that I can use. So that's really great. So that's something that I added, but it is I'm meeting with her soon, and I'll get more information. So the negotiation is long term. Some markets you can get in a little bit faster. It just depends on the market. And I wanted something that was really affordable. So I wasn't willing to, I don't like to try marketing when I'm looking at trying something and it's, $4 or $5 grand a month. I feel really uncomfortable. And that's a lot of money to put out there because remember, I'm a small organization. And one of the things I was really proud of with COVID, I slashed my operating costs by 40%. So I'm very cognizant of what my operating costs are. So, it'll be interesting. I would, and Marlena, I will let you know as soon as I change the commercial and see if it's better because I used my mentor's commercial and I don't love it. So I'm going to make it more Angie style and hopefully a little bit more approachable, and we'll see what kind of ROI we get.
Very interesting. Well, I definitely want to hear more when you do have some data on it. And let me just go ahead and take a moment to kind of reset the room. We had a couple more people step in. So hi, I'm Marlena Dates, for those of you that don't know me. And this is REI Live Orlando, Real Estate Networking and Deal Talk. And I will say I kind of messed this up because I set this meeting before I realized that I could make a club, and I should have run this meeting through the club tonight. So we will be doing that from now on. So check out the club. I think the best way to find it is just go to my profile, scroll all the way down to the bottom, and you'll see both REI Live, which is kind of like the umbrella group that Brian here to our right set up, and then we're kind of like an affiliate of it in this local area, and there's a few others throughout the Southeast, and I'm sure Brian can share more about that as well, and kind of like the intent of REI Live. Just throw you out there, Brian. But I do want to let everybody know, go sign up for that club, and you'll get notifications when we are going to have live meetings and stuff in there. Not exactly sure how it all works yet, but one thing at a time. Each week I improve a little bit. But anyway, we're here every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern to interview somebody that is a local investor in our community. Tonight we have Angie Aki talking about her wholesaling business and what's on her plate for this year and changes that she's looking to make in her own business and things that she's learned. And then anybody is welcome at any time to raise your hand and ask a question, or if you want to add to the conversation, just want to get up on stage. We definitely want everybody to come up on stage, you know, here in a little bit and introduce yourself, and us all get a chance to network a little bit, talk about any deals that you have going, that sort of thing. But I'm going to turn it over to Angie again, real quick, if you just want to give a real quick introduction again to yourself, and then I'd like Brian to introduce himself as well.
Okay, thank you. My name is Angie. I am local to Orlando, and I've been doing real estate investing for now, it feels like forever. It's only been 4 years, and I've been specifically focusing on wholesaling for only about 2.5 years. So for 2.5 years, but in that time, I've been able to be very successful and have left a multiple six-figure corporate sales job and have been able to more than replace that income. So I love real estate investing. I think it's amazing. One of my favorite things about real estate is that it's helping me and it's providing for what I consider my passion business. So I'm also a coach and speaker for women entrepreneurs. So I love that real estate is allowing me and affording me the opportunity to do both. And it may sound crazy to run two businesses, but I love it, and I will forever love real estate for that. So that is me in a nutshell.
I love it. Thank you. And Brian?
Marlena, thanks so much for starting this room. I just want to pop in real quick. I can't stay for a long time. Obviously, we're doing the wholesale thing here in about an hour and a half, but I just want to pop in and show my support for REI Live Orlando. I love what you're doing with it. Angie, it's good to meet you. I love what you said earlier about just the fact that it's so simple, but it's not simple. The fact that you know your operating costs and you know your numbers is something that we don't talk about a lot in wholesaling. It's probably the single most important thing when it comes from a number standpoint. So I love that. I love that you threw that out there. And then my name's Brian Tripp. I started REI Live, Real Estate Investing Live in Birmingham, Alabama. We've expanded into a few other markets, and Marlena and Josh, who are up here on stage, do an incredible job with our Orlando affiliate, I guess is what we call it. But just super, super honored to be here. I love what you got going on. I love the fact that because of Marlena, we now have a club. We have an REI Live club. So my first question to you was, how come we're not in the club tonight? It's brand spanking new.
Like I said, I'm learning as I go. I'm surprised I was able to get it live streaming last night and tonight. So I'm doing well so far.
No, it's awesome. I'm super excited about that. We're going to try to do the club tonight here in about an hour and a half on our wholesaling group. So again, super honored to be here. I'm going to stick around for another few minutes and hear from Angie and hear from what you guys got going on. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. And you two actually have met because Angie was one of the volunteers when we did our starting meetup that we did last year. So you did meet her when you were down.
Yes, that was pre-COVID. If we can remember back that far, we actually got to hug and shake hands and see faces. All those amazing, amazing things.
Absolutely. And, I think that's such a key point too, that, like, even though COVID hit, like, we're still getting the opportunity to be here right now and network. And I just really want to encourage everybody that, when you're on Clubhouse, don't just sit there and listen in, especially when you're in some sort of a local group or deal making group or Q&A. Like, you can certainly learn a lot, but learning is really not going to take you that far if you're not engaging, talking to new people, putting yourself out there, kind of giving your pitch of who you are and what you do in the world. So really, take the opportunity when you have the chance here in a few minutes for you to get up on the stage and introduce yourself. Please, I just want to encourage everybody to do that. And we had such a great time last year. We met so many new people when we did that big group, and we had like 200 people there. It was awesome. So a little bit different here on Clubhouse, but I'm having a lot of fun and making a lot more connections being here, getting to know people a lot better. But I sure do miss that face-to-face. I'm sure you guys all feel the same. But awesome. Well, thank you again so much for being here with us this evening. And Angie, tell us, what are you trying to work on specifically this year? I know you talked a little bit about it, but maybe tell us your strategy and what kind of information is leading into some of those changes that you're looking to make.
Sure. So I am actually looking into, I feel like I did a Facebook Live in my Facebook group today. It was interesting because I was talking about real estate investing and what I'm doing, and it's all very timely. But I feel like, you really have to specialize, right? And I feel like I've specialized for long enough that I feel really comfortable with the market. I feel really comfortable with the process. So now I want to stretch a little bit and branch out. So I have a mentor that she flips, and she's in the Southeast as well. She's fantastic. She also has a family, which is really important to me. And so she's taken me under her wing, and I am learning her process. So she flips, and she netted $1 million last year, and I had to clarify. I said, "I'm sorry, you netted what?" And she has a system, and she literally has 2 employees, which is my favorite, and she does not work 24/7. So it's amazing to meet people that are, living, and it's always interesting to connect and say, okay, what does your life look like? What does your family life look like? What are your goals? What are your dreams? What does your day-to-day look like? Because if it doesn't match up with your dream and what you're striving to do, then it's not a good fit. So for me, you can find people that are successful flipping everywhere. But for me, I really wanted to find a mother. I wanted to find someone that had young children. I wanted to find someone that was not going to be on site 24/7 flipping. That kind of stuff is really important to me. So I am branching out and will be flipping this year. So I am very actively looking for flipping opportunities. So if anyone has one or comes across one, please let me know. This is my second time on Clubhouse, so I'm not exactly sure how to share my information in case people want to reach out after, but Marlena knows how to reach me. So if you have a deal that looks good for a flip, please send it my way. I have contractors lined up. I have money lined up. I'm just looking for something right now that makes sense. So, and for me, that's always, beyond the deal, it's always learning and growing and stretching. So one of the reasons I haven't flipped before, I did it very poorly. I didn't really have the confidence to flip. So one of the things I would recommend is if you feel like you don't have the confidence, right? And one of the things I did really early on with real estate, and I continue to do both with my real estate investing career and also my coaching and speaking career, get a mentor or get a coach. Find someone that is doing what you want to do, is realizing the success that you want to realize, and have them coach or mentor you. Many people have programs, or many people will coach and mentor you. And that has been, if I can share one thing with you, one takeaway, if you don't feel confident and you need some help, get a mentor. And even if you do feel confident, get a mentor or coach, because that's the way that you can up-level yourself and realize your success so much faster than figuring it all out yourself, because there's no reason to recreate the wheel.
Oh my goodness, I love that, Angie. And it's so true. I mean, we would not have gotten as far as we've gotten as quickly if we hadn't hired coaches along the way. And, you know, I love that. And one of the first things that you did when you wanted to start wholesaling was you reached out to us and said, hey, can we go have lunch? I really want to understand more about this before I even get involved in it. And we've developed a great friendship around it. So I love it. And I love too what you said about making sure that you're.
Oh, I think we lost you, or maybe.
Oh no. Is it my phone is bad? Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Okay, I'm so
sorry. I don't
sorry.
know if it was just me though. I don't know.
Okay.
If it's just me, someone raise their hand and let me know.
Okay, well, I'll start over. Well, not all the way over, but you know, I just love what you said about making sure that you're looking for a mentor that represents the lifestyle that you want to be living, that is kind of in your shoes, because it's so easy to, you know, go for something flashy because it sounds good, but you're really not cut out for, don't really want to follow in the true footsteps of that person. So really getting to know the person and understand what it is that they're like, what is their lifestyle design idea? And if that doesn't fit with the type of life that you want to be living in relation to real estate investing or other work that you do, then that may not be the right coach for you. So I love that, Angie. I think that's sage advice. So I wanted to ask the audience real quick, does anybody have any questions for Angie? Anything about how she markets or runs her acquisitions, or, you know, what she's looking at with dispositions? Is there anything in the wholesale business realm that you are interested in learning more about this evening? And I mean, you're welcome to ask me questions as well. I run a very similar business, but I have a lot of background in doing creative strategy deals. I've done some rehabs, single family, multifamily, vacation rentals, and I know Angie's done a lot of things and had a lot of training as well. So if you have any questions, it doesn't have to be specific to Angie's business, but you know, please raise your hand. We'd like to get people up. And I see Jenny raising her hand, so I'm going to invite you up, and Trixie as well. Hey Jenny, how are you doing tonight?
Good, how are you?
Good, it's good to see you.
Yeah, well, I'm just wondering for either one of you, kind of what your strongest avenue is right now with marketing. Is it direct mail? Is it pay-per-click? Is it direct to your website or networking?
Sure. Well, Angie, why don't you go ahead and answer first?
Sure. So for me, it's two different things, one I pay for and one I don't. So I would say for marketing, I'm paying for it's text messaging right now. So SMS is definitely performing very well. Thankfully, we got that up and going again. We switched platforms, and that has really been helpful. So we're back up to where we were before, and I'm very happy with our ROI for our text messaging. So that's our strongest right now. And then the second strongest, and if you're looking for dollars spend and ROI, and it is the strongest, is our referrals. So we get referrals. I work with some attorneys. You know, I will partner with people, and that's been really great. So I would say, I believe, and I have to go back and look at my numbers because I cannot remember off the top of my head, and now I'm a little bit embarrassed, but I'm a very candid person. So our referrals either brought in 25% or 33% of our revenue last year. I can't remember, so please accept my apologies. My goal is for it to bring in 50% of our revenue this year.
So can I ask you on the texting, maybe you can share a little bit of your strategy. Are you hitting it, you know, 1, 2, 3 days in a row? Are you hitting it first, third, fourth day? Or is it 3 in the same day? How many times how many times are you sending the text before you get a response?
To the same person?
Yeah.
So with our text platform, you can't send, so if I text you, and you respond to me, then we can continue texting. But if I'm doing a follow-up and there's not a continued thread, Like if I text you, you don't respond back to me, I can't text you for another 30 days.
Wow.
And they used to have it where it was only 14, but they found that with deliverability, it was severely suffering at 14 days. So they bumped it to 30. So I really like that because it makes sense. So we have the system we use has drip campaigns in there. I can go up and pull follow-up. So we'll run a follow-up. So in essence, we're reaching out to them at least once a month. But it's not, I mean, you can't go in and text someone and then text them again in 3 days and text them again in 3 days because the carriers frown upon that and it kills deliverability rates. And so what a lot of the text platforms are doing that are TCPA compliant is they're all working together to kind of come up with something similar so that the carriers don't kind of push back. So that's what we're doing. I had another system, the first text system that I used, and you could text, I mean, I could text you every 10 minutes if I wanted to.
Right.
But we switched away from that, and our response rates are so much better using these compliance measures in place because it's getting through to the seller.
Interesting. Because the other thing I've run into recently is, I was using a skip trace service, and I've actually tried 2 or 3, and I'm finding more and more recently that the information is not as good as it was even a couple months ago.
Can I ask who you're using?
Batch skip tracing.
Yeah, I've heard that routinely from a lot of people. So I was using Lead Sherpa. Their texting and their platform used to be really awesome, but then we had some deliverability issues. Their skip tracing was great data. And then now I'm using Launch Control. And,
yes, I've heard of them.
Yep, so I can send you a link as well because I think through the link you get a discounted skip tracing price for a year or something. And so if you want, we can connect offline. I'd be happy to send that to you. But their data is also really good.
I love that.
I've heard batch skip tracing has tanked, and I've heard that from quite a few people.
Yeah.
That's one of those things too. It's like, like we were talking about before, it's so important to have these conversations and to share because, if we don't have this conversation, then, you're sitting there for months going, this data is awful, right? I'm not contacting my sellers when I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, I have great skip tracing data. There's no reason that I can't get that information to you and, then you can use it and reach the people you want to reach. So I love having these conversations because if we can save one person from spending a ton of money and what I feel like is sometimes throwing it out the window, I'm happy to do so.
Well, thank you, Angie. I really appreciate that. And yeah, we can connect offline.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, and I wanted to throw in there too, because the Batch Lead Stacker, I've been using that for over a year now and doing text messaging through there and all my data, and recently my skip tracing and pulling lists and everything that they offer. I even tried out their batch dialer, and I don't want to speak negatively about their company because I think they're great. Their people are really nice. Like I've connected with some of them, but overall, as they've grown, I've been noticing, and I have a ton of records, like, over 50,000 in my database. And I've been noticing that when I import data, it's not importing the same as what it is on my original list. And I have done the work myself to make sure that it's not just some flaw in the process that somebody else is doing. And I have had such issues, and even reaching out to support, they somehow crossed my account with somebody else that I'm friends with.
Oh.
And I don't know what happened. And they're like, oh no, we'll fix it. We'll make it right. I'm like, I don't even know how to begin to try and go through 50,000 plus records that have been skip traced and multiple times skip traced by them, even though they're not supposed to re-skip trace it if it's already skipped. And I'm like, I don't even know how you would fix that. Like, I have no idea like where in the process it started going wrong. All I know is every time I upload data, it seems like there's a problem with it now. And so I personally have backed away from it. I still pay just to house my data there in case I do figure it out or they figure it out, but I've moved on to other platforms.
Wow, Marlena, thank you so much, because I was literally, until the last couple of weeks, I was literally going to move over there. but I had also heard about launch control and was considering that one. But thanks, you guys. That's really helpful.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that still use them and like them. I don't think everybody has the same problems that I've had, but I'm in a group where most everybody uses it, and I've been seeing a lot more problems arising with it, and like people taking videos of like, here, watch this process as it happens, and you know, it's like putting the wrong address for like, you know, you have the mailing and the property address are different on an absentee list, and it's putting it in with the mailing address, or no, with the property address as both. So you're never actually getting the mailing address in there like you should. And I was like, wow, you know, that's the kind of stuff that I was seeing. And again, I'm sure they'll work it out, and they're good people and a good company. And I think they've just grown so much, who knows what happened. But I think there's other platforms out there that aren't experiencing those same problems. But I wanted to throw into what's working for me, since you asked that question. And we still love direct mail more so than anything. And we are starting TV ads in the Central Florida market, the Orlando media market here next week, actually. So we're really excited to start to kind of combine our branding message with the TV ads that we're doing, and the direct mail, and you know, anything else that we do too, especially our website and PPC. But I know with PPC, we found that hiring an agency, and I think this will be good advice for anybody that is trying to do PPC, it can be really expensive. And if you don't know what you're doing, you know, even if you're hiring good people that know how to run that kind of stuff, their interest is in traffic, and traffic can be really, really expensive and not very targeted if all they're really trying to do is up those numbers to kind of prove to you, look how much we've done for what you paid us. So we've gone through a couple of companies like that, and I'm actually joining a new program right now, today actually, to learn how to do the PPC stuff myself, so that I can create a simple process for somebody that I hire in my team to handle, like a VA, for example, that they can run it and keep my costs down, and they'll have my interests at heart, not just the interest of generating traffic. So we're getting back to PPC. I just want to throw that out there. We also do some texting and some cold calling, but like Angie was saying, you know, we've had some mixed results with that, and I'm actually very interested in maybe checking out Launch Control. I've heard good things about it as well. We're actually using Roar again.
Yeah, that's what I'm using right now.
That's been okay so far. We just kind of started back up our campaigns after a long time not using that. We were kind of using both that and Batch for a while, but yeah, I've heard a lot of people going back to Roar and really like it. So that's another option if you don't want to do Launch Control.
What I like about Roar is that you just put in the money that you want until you use it up, and it's not a monthly subscription.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I hear that it gets better deliverability. I really need to wait until we have a little bit more data on it before I can say that for sure in my own business. But I've had some coaching clients that have been using it more recently, getting away from Batch themselves for their own reasons. But it seems like a lot of people are starting to have issues with Batch. But yeah, I like Roar. I do like being able to kind of like do the individual click of something though. Is that what Launch Control does, Angie?
Yeah, so I started out with Roar. That was my the first platform that I used, so I'm really familiar with it. It does, so Launch Control, you do the same thing, you click, but what's really great, and without, I feel like now I'm a salesperson for them, but I really do like them. I'm really impressed. I like the platform much better because it literally looks like you and I are texting. So it's super easy to use. And then you create it actually takes a really, I think, for what you're doing, a long time to create your outgoing message, because they tell you, like, you can't use these words, you can't use these negative words, it's not going to deliver, you have to use X amount of spin tokens, and they make you do all this stuff that allows your message to be delivered. So, but you do have to click, and that's part of making it TCPA compliant.
Sure, gotcha. Yeah, and I think that's a key point for anybody that's interested in texting. You know, there are laws around it and how you're supposed to do it. And, you know, Roar is a throttled system, so you kind of set it to automate. And they really, really want you to be having somebody that is, you know, doing real labor. It's a human being that is clicking a button to go through. So most of the really, they're careful about compliance sort of systems will have you have to actually hit a button to make it go through. So that's something to, look at. Talk to your attorney about this kind of stuff. Some people think that, there's a gray area. I tend to think that there's black and white with the law, and you should probably try and stay on the right side of that line. But check with an attorney. If you haven't spoken to your real estate investing attorney that's really competent and you are wanting to get more into real estate investing or run a wholesale business or do any of these type of strategies, you really do need to make sure that you speak to a competent real estate attorney and get the best advice you can. And I'll tell you, the best way to do that, especially in this area, is just network. I personally love Joe Siegel, and he's very helpful. And if you get in with their title company, he offers title services, trust services, legal services, obviously, because he's an attorney, and he really knows his stuff. He's been the attorney for our local Central Florida Realty Investors Association for many, many years. And I just love him. He's always so helpful with legal matters. Or check with other local brokers that are investor friendly and find out, we have Rob Arnold in this local area, and he is always on top of what's going on with the local legislation in the state. So, network, find the right people. Even if you don't have money to lay out for some sort of consultation, sometimes you can get an attorney to talk to you for free if, there's some way that you can promise to bring them some business maybe. But even if you can't do that, there are people you can connect with that really understand this stuff, and you need to make sure that you're connecting with people that do understand it and can guide you in the right direction. Getting a coach is great. Sometimes coaches don't even know this stuff. So, always be careful that you're asking the right questions with the right people, getting the right information to stay safe with things. And I will also say that I have heard, coming through the grapevine, that there is going to be some new legislation coming out related to text messaging potentially here in the summer, and it could really shift things. Angie, have you heard anything about that?
I haven't. So I don't know. I'm a person, though, I kind of, whether this be right or wrong, my personality is I kind of deal with things as they come up. So I haven't, I don't know. But when that happens, it's guaranteed to happen. Cold calling, ringless voicemails, it's all guaranteed to happen. It's already happened with ringless voicemails. So that's part of the reason that and the operating costs, but it's part of the reason that I want to move a lot of my revenue stream to referral based, because then you're not really, right? What is there to regulate a networking meeting? And, so that's why I'm moving a lot of it there. But yeah, I'm sure that it will come, absolutely, because it's tightened down so much just in the past, 12 to 18 months. It's completely different than it used to be. Yeah. So it's going to continue to change.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd heard, because I'm in some groups that, pretty much everybody does text messaging at a really high level, like multiple thousands of text messages out per day. And I've just heard that over the summertime, some things, I don't know if it's like set in stone yet, so who knows what'll happen, but they're looking at making it so that you can't text out to anybody who's not already in your database and has like written consent. Which I think is kind of similar to what the laws are for cold calling already. Like, you're really not supposed to be reaching out to people. I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't really fully understand all the laws and as they change. And so I have to update myself, say every quarter usually is what I do with my real estate attorney. So that kind of goes back to that. And that's another key point, I think, is even if you consult with a real estate attorney once, that doesn't mean that 6 months from now, the legalities of whatever your strategy is aren't going to be different. So that's just something to keep in mind. And again, make sure you're networking with people that do those type of strategies so that you understand things that might be coming up that you might not be aware of. I want to go ahead and turn it over to Trixie. You came up on stage, so welcome. Go ahead and unmute your mic. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you have anything to offer this evening or a question, we'd be happy to answer it.
Well, hi, good afternoon, or good night by this time. I'm also in Orlando. I'm recently a brand new real estate agent. I'm just here just to learn and absorb all the information that is being shared. Basically where I'm at is I am starting out, but because I already know that in the end in mind is I would like to basically have a more heavier revenue stream from creative real estate side rather than the traditional side. But I'm so new at it that I'm not even sure how to, what would be the wisest thing to do, whether to just learn the ropes with the traditional buy and sell, or and then later snowball into the other side. So I'm just kind of here to learn as I hear from everyone else.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And I know that myself and Angie and Josh, who I'm using his phone, that's my husband. He's in the other room with the kids. He's not actually here, but he understands this stuff too. And Jenny as well. We've all been through the same training for dealing with transaction engineering, which is what you're talking about. It's putting together a deal that's a win-win. That's not just strictly a traditional transaction where there's cash or, you know, some sort of financing to buy a house at some retail or discounted value. So we can certainly all, I'm sure, pitch in on this. So Angie, why don't you take it first, and then Jenny, if you want to add to that, and then I'll give my thoughts at the end.
As far as kind of learning the whole process?
Yeah, I mean, I would say what she was asking is she's getting started, so she wants to look at how to do some of those creative transactions starting from scratch with an agent's license.
So, and I will say, so my caveat is that I'm not a realtor, so I'm not licensed. But the way that I learned was I went through a program and I learned creative financing. And there are, you know, if you're brand new and you're just trying to get a really base knowledge or, you know, a 10,000 foot flyover to start the process, because there is a lot that goes into it. And it's really interesting because I went through training and, you know, so you could take two people and they can look at something totally differently, right? So I learned the process and it felt really, really bulky to me, quite honest. Like I'm a straight shooter. I'm a very direct person. If you give me a really cumbersome way to do things and a really simple way to do things, I'm going to take the simple route because I'm direct and straightforward. So for me, it felt really convoluted. But it was really interesting as I met with a colleague on Friday and we were brainstorming about how our businesses can support each other and work together. And I love those meetings. And so we were meeting and our husband, the way he broke it down, because they specialize in creative financing. And I mentioned I specialize in wholesaling, but the way they broke it down, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's so simple. How did no one explain it to me like that ever? So, it's just the way you look at things. So I would personally, I would probably, if you're brand new, it sounds like you're brand new wanting to get into the investing side. I think Bigger Pockets is a really great resource. They have a ton of resources. They have a podcast you can listen to, you can read articles, and they cover all different types of creative financing. So they're going to walk through subject to, they're going to walk through owner financing, they're going to walk through lease options, they walk through wholesaling, and they walk through traditional as well. So that's really great. I would say that that's probably the resource that I would most highly recommend for any beginner if you're looking for a free resource before you get into coaching and mentoring. But again, once you're ready to take the leap, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you find a coach or mentor that resonates with you and that is running a successful business and start working with them, because that is the fastest way to get to where you want to be.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That really does help.
You are so welcome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jenny, how about you?
I will say that I've been learning investing for about 5 or 6 years now. And I started on a kind of a national platform mastermind coaching program and learned a lot. And then I went out and I think I looked at 1,000 houses, you know, and so if you're going to get into real estate investing, you kind of have to figure out what you want your niche to be. And even if it's just wholesaling or if it's rehabbing, or it doesn't really matter what it is, you need to understand what it is you're investing in. And so for me, it was all about learning the tools. What do I need to know to be successful at this? And so I need to know what a house, what's in it? What is it going to cost to fix? What is it going to cost to sell? What does it mean? What does the market mean? And you're right, there's so many tools out there. I agree that Bigger Pockets is an awesome platform to learn a lot. I think it can also be very overwhelming because they are getting so much bigger. They're talking on a grander scale. So if I were you, I'd go back to some of their earlier episodes for the beginners. And there's lots of them out there. I mean, if you're looking at wholesaling, there's Joe McCall, there's just so many podcasts. And I would start with, what is it for you? Like, what is your goal? And what is it going to take for you to get where you want to be? So you've got to kind of change what your priorities are. For me, it was study, learn, and then watch what other people do. So I ran at this full force. I got a partner. I did my first flip in Winter Park, and I lost a ton of money for the first time out. And then I went, oh, that's not the way to do this business. And so I was really fortunate to have a very good friend that was in the business take me on. And I partnered with him and worked for him for a number of years and was exposed to a lot of different things about real estate. And so I would tell you, if you're here in Orlando in Central Florida, joining Central Florida Realty Investors Association is a great place to learn the local markets and the local vendors and local people that you can learn from. I think that's so huge, is joining your local REI, because that's what I didn't really understand when I first got in. Was I was learning everything at a, like she said, a 1,000-foot level, but I didn't know the local market. And I found that was my big gap. So, I swear 5 years in, I still feel like a beginner. I really do. There's so much to learn every day that you need to make it a habit every single day to learn something, read something, give it the time that it's going to take to get good at it. And then pick something that really piques your interest and go after that and be good at that before you jump at something else. Because in this space too, it's so easy to go, oh, I like that. Oh, I like that. Wait, there's that. And you can have analysis paralysis and jumping at a lot of different things. But try to find one thing that really interests you, pick that, and get good at that first. Because this is a long game. It's not the short, get rich quick game.
Yes, I completely agree. That's very helpful. Thank you. And what was the name of the Central Florida?
Realty, it's the Central Florida Realty Investors Association.
Look for cfri.net.
Yep.
And
say that again. What was Angie saying, or Marlena?
cfri.net.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you were sharing earlier that the other investor, you said there was a local investor, the first name you had mentioned before Rob Arnold, there was another investor before that.
Oh, so Joe Siegel, he's a local real estate attorney, also a title company, and he provides trust services as well.
Okay.
And we can,
right.
anybody up here can network you with those people. So if you need connections, just reach out to us through our Instagram or whatever. And actually, Angie, just so you know, put in your profile, like connect it to your Instagram and Twitter or whatever you have. Or like you can also put, like I have a Calendly link in my bio or my profile. So if somebody wants to sign up for a call with me, they can do that pretty easily. So that's a good way. And even if you want to do that before we get off of here, you can add that in there. But I wanted to ask you.
Thanks for that. I will do that.
Yeah, no problem. And Trixie, I wanted to ask you, so you got your license. What made you decide to get a license?
So good question. Basically, I have had plenty of other state jobs ever since don't want to, well, right now I'm 29, and I would say I've been doing sales since maybe 2014 or so. No, way before that. Maybe 2013. So I've been hopping from job to job and trying different things. I've done a couple of like construction, it's like sales construction. Obviously, I'm not doing the labor behind it, but furniture sales, contract sales for different companies. And I'm kind of just at the place like I really want to put my feet on the ground and settle into something that is going to be a long-term career. It's always been, real estate is always something that has crossed my mind many times. I just didn't have the financial resources to get the license earlier at an earlier age. And now this 2020, I had the time, the resources, and I went for it. And then a couple of times I have had a handful of different friends and spheres of circles mentioning, hey, you might as well just do real estate. So I went ahead and did it. And I do see it to be something that I like, kind of the same thing as Angie shared. Like I have a lot of other passions and things I want to explore, but I do see real estate being something that is going to be the foundation of income, and then everything else can just be outflowing from there.
Okay. And the reason I ask is because a lot of people, when they think about getting involved in real estate, they kind of think about the obvious thing is like, go get my license. That'll allow me to do real estate. But what's great about real estate investing is that you don't need a license. And I can tell you, Jenny is licensed. So if you have any specific questions about things that you can do while licensed in real estate investing, Jenny would be a great person to ask because she does both. But I will say that, you know, oftentimes when somebody gets a license and they really want to do real estate investing, what they really should be focusing on is the real estate investing. And not that having a license is a bad thing, but it's just that realtors and investors look at things entirely differently. So, you know, you really need to make a decision. Do I want to be a salesperson in real estate, working under somebody else, or eventually maybe having your own brokerage and business? And is that the path that you want to go down, where you're selling other people's homes and you're making a commission? Or do you want to be an investor who's going to learn how to buy at a discount, who's going to be actually buying and selling assets, and you can make cash flow from that and have appreciation and all sorts of the things that come with that, that you're not just working for somebody else. Now you're actually working to build investments and build wealth for yourself. And I'll venture a guess that you're here mostly because you want the second one, but maybe you can confirm or deny that.
Yeah, definitely. Now that I'm further in after I pass and everything, and especially since I've joined Clubhouse and all the resources and information, I'm finding that same information that you're sharing about. I didn't even need a real estate license, but I don't know. I think I guess I can at least appreciate that I'm learning the foundational information that I was not aware of before. And then I still have a lot to implement in the learning process.
Sure. And again, there's nothing wrong with getting your license. It's not like it's going to hold you back as long as you keep your focus clear. And so back to Jenny's point, she was saying, you know, pick one thing that you want to do, really decide, you know, this is for the long haul. And I'm going to do this strategy until I hit my goals with it. And, you know, I can explore other strategies once I really understand what I'm doing, but focus on one specific thing. So kind of my point is, and I've done the real estate licensing coursework myself. I just chose not to be licensed, but I'm actually starting to do like referrals with agents, and I'm going to need to have my license for that to be legal. So I am getting my license only for that reason, because it's like a new income stream for me at this point. But, you know, with getting your license, I learned a lot about regulations for licensed people and what you can and can't do to, you know, cover your own butt and the butt of the broker and make sure that you're treating people right. And the great thing about real estate investing is, while all those same principles apply if you're being, you know, a good citizen and an ethical, moral person, you don't have somebody looking over your shoulder the whole time trying to regulate you on things that you're doing that are actually for yourself and not about brokering. So when you have a license and you're trying to be a real estate investor, especially as you're getting started out, I just really highly recommend that you really study clearly what you want to do and kind of put on blinders to anything else, because it can get really confusing if you're trying to do multiple things in two different directions. It really is a perceptual difference for an agent to try and think like an investor and vice versa a lot of times, because we just don't do the same things. So I just want to kind of make that point. And if you need help dialing that in, like, I'm happy to help. I'm sure Angie or Jenny would be happy to help as well. I mean, connect with people on here for sure. Reach out to us. You know, everybody's here to help and, you know, grow together. So if you need some help kind of looking at some different strategies, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, Tracy, I would recommend, if you don't already have your license somewhere, is to make sure you're finding an investor-friendly brokerage. And if you want to catch me offline, I'm happy to help with that. I just became a broker associate so that I could have the freedom of just going off on my own. I happen to be somewhere that works for me, so I haven't made that leap yet, because there's a lot of added expense to, you know, running a brokerage and having other people on your team. So I'm just sitting tight with that right now. But I do think having your license does have its nuances for sure. And making sure that your broker is really clear on what you do is important. And you have to make sure that you're in alignment. You know, I had to have that conversation. Okay, this is what I do mainly. I do a lot of retail stuff too. But I needed to make sure that what I was doing as an investor was okay with them.
Wow, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I think that's the main thing that I've been contemplating and kind of debating on how exactly, how do I break the news and how do I communicate this to the group that I work under. I currently have EXP. I'm in the Lido area. The group is really phenomenal. I just know for sure that they do not have any investment knowledge or interest into that. They're very heavily on the traditional side. I just haven't been able to find as I'm learning and discovering the way of the land, I'm realizing, oh, I need to find a group that actually does the investment side and a little bit of, well, however I can make this happen. I'm not sure.
Well, I know there's a number of agents that are with EXP. I see Frank just got on. He's with EXP. I was with EXP previously. It just wasn't a good platform for me. So I've moved my license. But I mean, you're certainly in a position to refer that stuff to somebody who can. Obviously, if you were doing renovations, you're going to put it on the MLS, so you can, you know, that's the benefit of having your license, is you can go ahead and put that out there in the MLS and save yourself the cost of an agent, at least on the listing side. So there's different ways of looking at it, but you do have to be very careful. I mean, my experience when I was with EXP was that they were absolutely against wholesaling, very clearly. And I do know that there's still a lot of agents that do it. You know, so again, it's your personal, you know, decision. It's just that for me, I wanted to make sure that I was on the same page with my broker and that they aligned with what I was going to do.
I think that's great advice. And, you know, I want to give a quick moment, and actually, I'm sorry, real quick, Trixie, did we answer your question sufficiently, do you feel?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to give a quick opportunity for a couple more introductions, answer a couple more questions, but you're more than welcome to ask additional questions if you have them. I'll just keep you up here on stage. So Ginny, I mean, you've talked quite a bit here. I made you a moderator. Frank, I'm happy to see you as well. Can you guys both tell everybody a little bit about yourselves and start with Jenny?
Well, I think I did an introduction a little bit earlier, but for anybody new that's on, I've been investing for about 5 years. I've been mainly in the renovation space, buying, fixing, selling. I'm trying to scale my business and to, you know, start into different strategies, including wholesaling and multifamily. I'm also starting another meetup group that's really specifically to encourage women getting into the space. I love and I mainly work with mostly men, but I also see the need to have a lot of new female entrepreneurs stepping up in the space. So that's kind of been my focus recently. And I am a newly broker associate. So if any of you have real estate, especially transaction questions on what you can do, can't do, I've done quite a few transactions and also have experience in the turnkey market.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me, Marlena.
Yeah, no problem. And I appreciate you offering that. I know you told a little bit before you asked your question before, but I just wanted to make sure everybody got a good feel for who you are. So thank you. And how about you, Frank?
Hey Marlena, hey everyone, how you doing tonight? Sorry I missed Angie's part earlier. I was actually helping the seller figure out which way they should go, whether they should sell their house for cash or have us listed. I caught the tail end of what Trixie said. Actually, we're doing I am, as Jenny mentioned, I'm an agent with EXP, and I currently just bought 2 houses yesterday. So I got 5 houses that I'm flipping at this time, and I do quite a few listings as well these days, and we're actually building a team out. This Saturday, I'm doing a training at the XP today, and we're actually talking about investing, and the guy that's over me, George, is wanting the agents to learn the investing side of this. So I agree with the person, especially starting out, should choose a focus, but I don't personally see a conflict. As a matter of fact, I'm more convinced today that many people should not sell their house discounted. Some should. It just depends. And I like, of course, I've done a bunch of deals. I've started in 2018. Actually, I started earlier when I was working for a church, helping them buy property. But then when I got an investing piece, it was in 2018. And I actually I've been into like 240 houses in the last year. I'm one that still goes out and sees people. And I like being able to go in and offer them options. But I am focused, I just bought a rental recently. So I am focused when the opportunity presents itself to buy a house, keep it, list it for somebody if they need it, or flip it. So at this point, I like being able to offer the options. And to Marlena's comment earlier, in the past, when I was only focused on wholesaling, which I'm not saying that's good or bad, it's just, when I was only focused on it, I lost lots and lots of leads that I could never convert into money. And today I can. And it's not just about the profit, it's about being able to help the customer with whatever they really need or want to do. So I'm a bigger fan than ever of the options. Jenny's right. You got to be sure you're at the right brokerage that makes sense for you based on whatever you're going to do. But I'm a huge fan of it today, and so I really like how it works.
Awesome. I see. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The insight really helps. What I was thinking was being like directly marketing myself with as I'm a lister, I buy and I sell. Wait a minute. I buy and sell homes. So meaning that I take away the working with the buyer agent, but just becoming the listing and the creative opportunity there.
Is that a question, or are you just making a comment?
I guess that's what it sounds like. You were also paralleling the same idea where you just go in as the introduction of, hey, there's an opportunity to list your home, but then at the same time, you end up sharing there's also these other options for creative investment.
Well, so I do a lot of marketing, and I actually, when sellers reach out to me, I tell them, if you reached out to me and we were talking, I would say, hey, listen, I'm not sure if I'm the answer for you. I'm not sure if I'm the best option, but I do have options for you that we can work through. And I let the seller dictate, the conversation. And, I'm happy to list a property, and, we're building a team. Actually, there's 5 or 6 of us that have joined EXP that we're also doing deals together now. And it just depends on how you want to roll. The confusion will be if you're not clear on what it is you're trying to do. So I know that when I go into a property, that I don't have a predetermined way I want to. I really feel like I'm at a place where I'm neutral and the customer dictates what they need. Gentleman the other day, he sold me his house for $65,000, $70,000 under what I could have listed it for him. And he said, I got to leave in 21 days. I don't want to fool with this. This is what I want. And okay, cool. We bought it. We'll put it on the market and sell it. I gave him the math, and that's what I do. Hey, if I sell it for you, here's the math on it. If I buy it from you, here's the math on it. I'm candid with them both ways, and sometimes we might take it over, subject to whatever, a creative way. But the process is very transparent, and they know what they're going to profit if they sell it to me. This is what I'm going to make. This is what they'll make. If I listen for them, this is what they'll make. This is what I'll make. I actually write the math out for them so they can see. But what I'm really passionate about more than ever is that I can help you about any way you want to go, and I don't care which way you choose. So that's and when the opportunity comes to keep it a rental like it did recently, because the big thing there is chasing deals at some point is like, I want to stop. And I want to keep assets every time I can so that I'm not spending my life chasing deals. But what I love about the position today is being able to help people whichever way they want to go. And that's to me, the best place to be.
Yeah, and I wanted to jump in there and kind of piggyback off of that. Trixie, I know you're just getting started, but when you were talking about, I almost kind of heard you talk about like you're marketing yourself, branding yourself as somebody who's an agent that can also buy and sell. And I just, from a marketing perspective, one of the biggest key points of marketing is to make sure that it's very singular. You need to have a very direct message of how you're going to be putting yourself out there. And it's great that you can go out there, like Frank is saying, and like when you're there, you're a problem solver. Like you can do a number of different things, right? And if at the end of the day, listing is the best thing for them, then, that's a tool in your toolkit. You can pull that out and offer that. But you really need to decide, are you going to be an agent who's really seeking listings? And maybe if the situation calls for it, you can also offer some sort of creative structure or cash deal or something like that as an investor. Or do you really want to focus on marketing yourself out there as an investor, a cash buyer, somebody that can be a problem solver and talk to people on that level? And if and when it's appropriate to bring a listing into the situation, then you can do that. And, oftentimes I know Frank does this, if he's got a listing, he's not the one that's doing the listing work and the showing and the selling and all that kind of stuff. He is doing the acquisitions of those contracts that then are going to get closed by somebody else. So if he does a listing, it's more of a referral. And Frank, you can chime in if I'm overstepping there.
And thank you. That's a great point. And I totally agree with this. Here's what I would suggest, Trixie. This is just throwing out an idea, which is, Arlene is absolutely right. I think it's better to market as a cash buyer, and then when you're there with the customer, if you do it over the phone or however you're going to do your business, if you realize, for example, gentleman said, I want $200,000 for my house, then easily, it would have taken $60,000 to rehab it, and a retail in the house was like $230,000. So we weren't even close to what we could do there, but he reached out to me as a cash buyer. Once I got there and realized, we had talked over the phone, but realized this is what he really wanted. He told me over the phone, but then, when we got together, confirmed it. But he was not looking for a real estate agent. There's many people out there who think real estate agents are not the way they want to go. Thus, Open Door, OfferPad, Zillow, all these companies that are iBuyers. And so what I find is more people reach out to cash buyers and don't really understand what a cash buyer is or what that equation really looks like. And as you're out there with them, you have the opportunity to say, by the way, I can list this house for you as well. And that gives you the option. But for sure, Marlene is right. I think dead on. The marketing should focus on being a cash buyer. And then you have other options, like she said, when you're trying to help them figure out what they need to do.
Yeah, and Trixie, I'll add, and I know this is probably an old statistic, but I'm sure it's probably still correct. It's like there's so many agents out there because there's such a low barrier to entry to get a license. And not to say that it's easy to get a license, because it's not, and a lot of people fail the test the first time, second time even. So, definitely a lot of respect for anybody that goes after that and achieves it. But at the end of the day, there are a dime a dozen agents are. Most of them are not really active in what they do, and therefore not really that successful. Everybody knows a handful of agents, their friends, their family, their neighbor down the street, like their buddy that's like, oh, you just got to use my agent. And, there are a lot of really great agents out there, but it's like the average agent in the country makes something like $18,000 a year from their real estate agent activities. And so, the cream of the crop is a very small portion of people that really go out there and they go after it hard and they market really heavily. They talk to a ton of people, they run a team. If you really want to be successful with that, you're going to have to do those things. And again, you're still always going to be capped at the percentage that you're going to be making off those transactions. But, if you approach it the other way with the investment, then, you have a leg up, because so many people will contact us, for example, from our marketing as a cash buyer, and say, when we say to them, why don't you just list it? It sounds like a really nice house. I'm sure it'd sell really quickly. You make top dollar. And the first thing that a lot of them say if they don't want to work with an agent is, no, I've had a bad experience with an agent, or all agents are liars, or I had an agent out and they told me my house was worth 300 and I know that's not true. So there's a lot of stigma in a lot of people's minds with agents, and right or wrong, like we are dealing with people in their problems, and we want to bring a solution to the table, not just get a listing contract. And a lot of agents, and I don't mean to speak about anybody that has a license here by any means, but I've seen a lot of agents that don't know what they're doing, set a price way too high, thinking they can come down over time, and it ends up killing the sale, and people get dragged along time-wise, and also oftentimes end up taking a lot less for the house at the end of the day, let alone their holding costs and that sort of thing. So there are a lot of agents out there that are, basically just kind of incompetent because they don't do enough business to really learn the lessons that they need to be really skilled at what they do. So I agree with Frank. I think you should target people that are looking for a cash buyer, because even if they're thinking of listing, they're really thinking about how quickly can I get this done? And wow, a cash buyer, that's like an answer to my prayers right now. Let me talk to this person, even if at the end of the day, the listing is the better thing for them. Did you have any other questions from there? Okay, I'll assume you're good. I do want to move on. We've got a little over a half hour left, so I want to take a couple more questions. But everybody, thank you so much for being here this evening with us. And thank you for those of you that stepped on to stage, and for my new moderators helping out with the questions and everything this evening. So David, it's great to see you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're working on in your business, and if there's anything we can help you with, or you want to just add to the conversation.
All right, thanks. I'm glad to be here. You actually brought me into it, as you know, over the weekend, and so it's been every day since then.
That's awesome.
Just so many rooms, and I definitely agree with what you guys are saying. Can everybody hear me real quick? Just verify. You should have a bad signal.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. There's a lot of rooms I've been jumping in, and I think it's really key at this position, if you're going to be on this app a lot, to point out, like you guys are saying, to kind of focus on one, because you can jump into wholesaling and commercial or Airbnb stuff. I mean, there's been a whole lot. So thanks for bringing that back to central point. So your presentation over the weekend was really good, Marlene. I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. I was taking a whole lot of notes, and it really got me fired up on it and thinking about it, and really seeing it in a new light. So I guess that's where I've been focused the most since then, and really trying to learn and take notes. And the more I learn, I just realize there's a whole lot out there and a lot of options, as you guys were saying earlier, of skip tracing and launch control, and don't use batch skip tracing anymore. That sort of thing. That you really do have to keep your hand on the pulse, as you were saying, Angie. That it's constantly a changing thing, and so. As I learn, I definitely see it as a great skill to have, because being able to sell and find your own deals and use creative financing and creative, being able to talk to people to make these deals happen is such a great skill you can use in so many ways that I am definitely interested in that route. But then looking at what I actually enjoy about real estate is maybe not so much that part. There's parts of that, I guess, so that I guess you really need to have a good team in place so that you aren't just bogged down with it. But I guess at the end of the day, for me, buy and hold is where I'd really like to be and work towards that passive. But I also really enjoyed your story, Marlena, of making those deals when you're on vacation. So there's definitely a lot of power to wholesaling. And I guess I'm in a position of ignorance, more or less, with it, and just trying to take it all in. So I did have a question for you, Angie. You were really accurate with your numbers. You know exactly down to the percentages of what changed and what affected what. So I wanted to ask you how you got so specific on those things. Was it a spreadsheet, or is there some website that tracks this information for you? Because my side hustle is currently couch flipping, and I just made a simple spreadsheet to kind of keep track of month by month money coming in and out for different various things through that. And I love the data, and the more data, the more kind of I nerd out on it. So I was just wondering where you're getting your data.
So I love that you love data, and I respect people that love data. I'm not one of those people. So ironically, I keep it really simple. So for me, when I'm looking at return on investment, I'm looking at how much is going into that marketing source, and I'm looking at how many deals we're getting and what those deals are bringing in. When I'm looking at something like a 40% reduction in operating costs, I know I looked at, and if you've not read, and if anyone here has not read Profits First, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. I actually sent the link to a woman I was speaking with this morning, and we were talking about accounting and bookkeeping and all those really fun entrepreneurial conversations. And so I recommend you read it if you haven't. Profits First really helped me drill down into how much was going out and how much is coming in, and the way they have you set things up. It may sound a little crazy, but you have 5 accounts per entity, and I have multiple entities. So when you log into my bank account, it's a little bit like mayhem, but it makes sense. And so you have an income account, and you have an operating account, then you have an owner compensation, a tax account, and a profit account. So it's really easy to know, right? And so for me, when I'm looking at operating costs, I put everything on one credit card for my business, and then I have my payroll and my overhead for my labor, right, and my acquisitions people. And so that comes from one. I know what that is, and then I have every other expense going through on my credit card. So it's really easy for me to just take a really quick snapshot and know what my operating costs are and know what's in my account, because Profits First teaches you, it teaches you you're putting a certain percent into there for operating costs. So what happens, and I think it can happen with any business, right? It's really easy that all of a sudden your operating costs start eating everything. And you don't realize you need this, and you need this, and you need this, and you need this, and oh my gosh, your operating costs can be, $20,000 plus a month easily. And then you realize, wait, I don't need that because here's my budget, and oh my gosh, what am I going to get rid of? And you start slashing and hacking. And so for me, I'm more of a simple person. I'm not a spreadsheet lover. I like the data when you give it to me. I really don't want to dive into the data. So for me, it's just really easy to look at what's going out, whether it's operating costs versus what's coming in from a revenue standpoint, or what's going out for marketing specifically. And a marketing channel, and what does that mean? What's coming in? How many deals have we closed for that? What is our, what's the cost per lead in that? So I look at it a little bit more like that. Did that answer your question? I feel a little bit like I gave you a non-answer.
Yeah, it was, I guess there isn't, my question is more based on like a certain website to go to or a spreadsheet, and the fact that you have credit cards going, that kind of splits it up and it categorizes it for you, it sounds like, and keeps it pretty simple, really. So
it does. I also have an accountant that does my bookkeeping for my flipping and wholesale business, so I get a report from them. So yes, I guess I do. I have a fantastic accountant that provides me with a report that says, here's your costs, right? Here's your operating costs, here's your marketing costs, your labor costs, your systems, your software. They everything down for me. So I guess that, and it's so funny, I maybe a little bit take that for granted because there's so much. We were talking about teams before. I'm not sure if it's before you hopped on, and I neglected to include them, and I am embarrassed by that because they are a huge part of my external team. And they do provide great advice and support and data for me. So yes, I don't like data. I like data to be given to me, and I have a wonderful accountant that takes care of all of that for me. He's magical. They're magical. It's a whole team. They're magical.
Who are you using?
So I use Sean DeMercurio. They were under the Heroes Group name before, and now they're under Mercurio Advisors. So I highly, highly, highly recommend them. They work with real estate agents. They work with investors. They get it. I have referred them quite a few clients because I am floored by their customer service, their ability, their ease to work with, and everything. So I highly recommend them. If you reach out to them, please let them know Angie referred you. They take amazing care of their clients.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Angie. And I just wanted to kind of bounce off of what you're saying with Profit First. That is Mike Michalowicz is the person that wrote that. And for anybody that's kind of newer in the room and trying to figure out which direction you want to go, or just want to, kind of dig into what it takes to be really successful at anything that you might choose. He started, I believe his first book was The Pumpkin Plan. And it kind of just a quick synopsis talks about how, there are these $1 million prize winning huge pumpkins that, there are these huge like festivals or whatever that people will pay $100,000 for a seed to a pumpkin. It's crazy. But the point is about the book that, if you invest everything that you're doing into one specific thing, you can get results that you can't do by having a big, huge pumpkin patch of a bunch of little tiny pumpkins, right? You're not going to get the same results. So you really have to learn how to prune away the things that are just going to kind of sap the energy that is going in the one main direction. So that's a really key piece of advice. And then Profit First, as Angie was talking about it, I use that, and I've used it since the beginning of 2018, and I love it. It makes it so easy to get, for example, like a check from, and realize at the end of the day, only 40% of this is actually something that I can take home. So it makes it really easy not to overspend on, your personal stuff. And then also you set aside money for taxes so that you pay that. You set aside profits to set yourself up for a quarterly kind of profit taking from your business, which is nice, or you can use it for new initiatives. And then you have 30%, and these are just kind of their standard numbers. It may be flexible depending on your business, but it's worked well for us. 30% goes to your expenses. And when you, like Angie was saying, when you only have 30% to spend, and that's all that's ever going to be in that account, you have to either cut back or you have to do more deals. You have to really watch your expenses, and it really helps you kind of stay in line. And then his third book is Clockwork. And that talks about how to build a business from the beginning that's going to be able to automate without you. So that's a really great series of books from him, and I think they're all wonderful, and you should all check them out. And I would go in order with that. The Pumpkin Plan, because it teaches you how to focus. clockwork actually would probably be best for next. If you're starting to generate money, profit first for sure if you're already generating money from real estate or other business pursuits. But thank you so much for sharing that, Angie. I think that's awesome and such a great tip. I do want to go on to make sure everybody gets a chance to introduce themselves. We've got about 22 minutes left in the room. So Bob, thanks again for joining us here. Why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and tell us a little bit about, what's on your mind tonight?
Thanks so much for having me. It's been a great conversation. I really enjoyed all the tidbits here. A little bit about me. So I actually live in South Jersey. I have been investing in real estate. I started in 2008, buy and hold, fix and flip. I have some wholesale experience. I worked as an acquisitions manager for a few different investors over the last 3 or 4 years. And I'm in the process of looking to move to Florida. So these rooms have been great value. So I've already met a few people. I'm actually going to be in Orlando the end of this month. So I already set up a couple appointments and looking to network and connect with more people in the area while I'm down there. You were talking earlier about wholesaling, and a couple quick questions, I guess, that sort of popped into my mind. So where I live, I'm very close to both Philadelphia, and I also am in New Jersey. So there are different standards, I guess, for wholesaling deals. And our market is really saturated with wholesalers right now. In Philadelphia specifically, you actually need a wholesaling license, and most wholesalers in Pennsylvania, specifically Philadelphia, do not. They won't do a double close because there's a really high transfer tax in Philadelphia. It's 4% every time you do a closing. So really high transfer tax. So they kind of avoid that. And then in the New Jersey side, more often than not, wholesalers will double close with the intent of, I guess they don't want the seller to know or the buyer to know how much they're making on the deal. So I guess I was just curious in Florida and specifically in Central Florida, what little idiosyncrasies or sort of how does wholesaling happen? How does your process work?
Well, I'll take that first and then open it up to anybody else that wants to add. And I'll just say really quickly, if you do want to do anything in New Jersey or Philly, I have 2 girlfriends of mine that do active like $100,000 a month wholesale business in those locations, and I'm pretty sure they do contract assignments. So I'd be happy to connect you with them. But in Florida, I mean, going back to make sure that you speak with a competent real estate attorney, best way to find that person is through networking to know who really understands what they're doing. But they'll tell you that, in Florida and all across the country, there are certain things that are actually like third degree felony level sort of offenses if you don't do it right. But in Florida so far, you don't need a license to be able to wholesale. They're not trying to push that currently. And you just really need to make sure that you're not crossing any of the licensing laws. And the Florida state statutes are pretty clear. And obviously you can look those things up online and just kind of read through the section that applies to licensing and brokering behavior. So that's what I always recommend to everybody is read that through. If you're not really fully understanding exactly what it says, definitely make sure that you review it with a real estate attorney. And then contracts and that sort of thing, it's contract law, so it's pretty similar across the country. There's nothing specific that I am personally aware of that you need directly in your contract in Florida to, there's no change of anything compared to another state there. So far, I think we're pretty wholesale friendly, although they do want to make sure that people are not brokering without a license, but that's pretty standard across the country. Anybody else?
I feel like you covered it pretty well, unless it sounds like someone's going. Never mind.
I was just going to say, Bob, it depends. For me, it depends on if I did a double close. I've done it, I've done it sometimes. It just depends on the value of the assignment. And so we do it, and it's not like it's not as expensive as you mentioned up in the Northeast. And but I'm really transparent with people, man. Like they know this is what I'm gonna make on it. And so I don't really worry about hiding it most of the time. There's been a few times where it was significant, and so we double closed. But most of the time, I think I've only done that twice. Every other time, it's like, this is what I'm going to make. Here it is. If there's an issue, let's talk about it. But I don't believe there's much to hide in these transactions. I know a lot of guys would say otherwise. You should double close all the time, but we don't have to do that here.
Well, and I'll add, if you're not aware of this, Frank, or anybody else in the room, we just have our title company split the HUD. So, we tell the seller, like, this is going to be a net amount to you, and we're going to buy the house. And in our contract, it says that we expect to resell it for, concurrent profit at the closing. So, I mean, it's right there. It's very simple language, so they get to read it. Of course, we go over it with them and everything. But basically, we just have the title company put the seller's side of the transaction on a document, and they get to see that everything that they were expecting to get is right there. And then they don't have to see what the buyer is paying us for our assignment fee, because it's really none of their business. It doesn't matter. It's probably just going to psychologically irk them and make them feel like they lost out on something. Of course, they know that we're going to make a profit off of it, but you don't have to throw it in their face. And then the buyers, I mean, we don't let our buyers know what we're actually making until, right before closing, when we put out the HUD. And the reason that we do that is because we don't want anybody arguing with us. They'll make us an offer, and a week, 2-3 weeks later, we're closing on it, and they get to see what we're making. And sometimes they're really, really surprised. And sometimes we practically give deals away because our numbers were wrong and we still just want to get it closed for the seller. So, you don't have to worry about it, I think, with your buyers, unless you are worried about it. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you have somebody buying a deal from you and they made you an offer and it was a good deal for them in that offer, then, buyer beware. Like, you made that offer. If you got a problem with what I'm making on it, that's really not a problem that you should have, because this is my business, that's your business. So we're very transparent. We assign pretty much everything that we do. I think we've had a couple of partners in the past many years ago that really just felt strongly that because we were making $15,000 on a deal, we needed to double close it. But one of the biggest one that we did a few months back was over $46,000 in one transaction. We closed it 2 weeks after we went under contract with the seller. And it was at her price, by the way. So we just got to say yes to what she was asking. And an agent bought it and got to see what we were making at closing. And he was like, man, you guys are good. Let's do more of these. So you might be pleasantly surprised if you don't, think for other people and assume that they're going to be, worried about what you're making. And if they are worried about what you're making, then they're worried about the wrong things. And maybe you don't really want to work with that person anymore. That's just my 2 cents, though. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Well, I think too, it's all in how you frame things, right, and how you set it up. I mean, we have done a couple double closings. Primarily, it's been, and it's more often recently around hard money lenders, because sometimes they will say, okay, well, they have stipulations where wholesalers can only make a certain percent and whatever. And I have a real big problem with someone telling me how much money I can make, because I'm not telling the lender how much money they can charge on their origination fees, which are astronomical, nor am I telling if someone's flipping it, how much they can make it on the back end. So we have double closed in those occasions, and that just avoids the hard money kind of the requirements and takes that away, so that it's not a headache for us. But 9 times out of 10, we do an assignment. And it is, we've assigned, we had one, I remember it was, oh my gosh, it was over 60,000, and we assigned it, and it was no problem. But, people know, and the more that you work with people, my buyers and I have a fantastic relationship. And so they know, and I'm pretty crystal clear. It's not like I'm tripping over all of these off-market deals and bringing them to them. It takes time and effort. And so they see what I'm doing as a huge value add to their business. And they know I'm providing it to them at a fair price. So like Marlena said, sometimes we're going to knock it out of the ballpark. We're going to bank on a deal. Sometimes we're not, and we may make, $3 or $5 grand just because we need to move it. It's the right thing to do for the seller, and it's got to go. So, and they know that. And I know one of the buyers I've worked with, he's purchased 4 deals. So he's seen everything from, gosh, I think one deal, I want to say my assignment fee was 3 or 5, I can't remember. And then the one most recently was 30 grand. And he's seen everything in between. And one of them I had a partner on. So we both, I think it was like a total of $50,000 assignment fee. But he has no problem with that because I'm providing him with value and he's making money on these rehabs. So he's making, 40, 50 grand. I'm not telling him, hey, I don't want you to make that much. So I think it's how you set it up for people. But I would highly recommend just assigning it. And we do the same thing for our closing. Our buyer and seller docs are always 100% of the time separate. They get separate closing statements. It just prevents any issues.
Yeah.
No one wants issues at the closing table.
Yeah, it's so true. And I just wanted to add real quick, Angie, you might want to check into Novation Agreements. And something else that we do that is very similar to a Novation Agreement, that's a new thing that I learned about recently, is we just tell the seller, if they're going to work with a lender, then we're going to have our agreement on the side with the seller. So we basically are selling our contract back to them at the closing table when they close with the lender. Which sounds a little bit more of a creative rather than a wholesale specifically. You're obviously bringing in agent and regular lending and that sort of thing. But we have successfully closed without the lender being able to say anything on transactions like that without having to do a double close. So we can talk more about that later.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I don't mean to cut anybody off. Anybody's welcome to reach out to me about that. And, Bob as well, I don't want to cut you off. I just want to make sure everybody that's on stage here gets a chance to introduce themselves real quick. So, did that kind of answer your question for now?
Yeah, it was great. Thank you so much.
Okay, yeah, no problem. And again, feel free to reach out to any of us anytime. Sean, welcome to you as well. It's nice seeing you again. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Okay. How's everybody doing tonight? So I'm a full-time real estate investor. I live in Orlando, own buy and holds throughout the state of Florida, and do fix and flips as well. And I'm actually kind of doing this backwards from what most people do. I'm actually starting to get into wholesaling now a little bit. So kind of the backwards way. I also co-host or host several meetups in the area, which are great networking events. We have about 2 a week we do for most months. So it's great to be here, enjoying listening in. And I know many people on this call, so and not Rob for sure, because I'm never get to Jersey. It's good to be here. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad that you joined us, and I didn't realize that you were doing that many meetings a week. So that's great. Again, CFRI is great in the area, but there are other groups as well too. So Trixie, you might be able to connect with multiple groups and meet a variety of people that way that can help you out. And Sean, are you licensed?
I am not anymore. I was from 2000 until 2009, and I gave up my license to just do investing full time.
Gotcha. Okay. And Trixie, just so you know, Sean obviously has a background in doing other strategies and has been licensed, so he might be another good resource as well for you. And, I just want to kind of second that, Sean. I did the same thing. We did all the creative and other types of deals, rehabs, all that stuff earlier on, and building our rental portfolio, and then got into wholesaling. And I can just tell you, I've loved it. And I think that really shows, obviously when I'm out there talking over the weekend, I'm sure you could see that with it, but we absolutely love what we do, and even going on vacation and everything. So, but thank you again for being
absolutely.
here.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Oh yeah, thanks. And Nanda? Hi, are you there?
Hey, good evening, everyone. Hi. So thank you for inviting me to participate in the stage, Marlena. And same as Sean, I know a lot of people here in this call. I'm a kind of new investor. I've been in this business for like 2.5 years now. I've done 2 flips. One was originally to be buy and hold, and then we end up selling it and making some money on the sale. So that was great. And I am just starting to, pursue my leads, and let's see where that's gonna leave me. My main goal is to focus in group homes. I'm focusing on trying to set up assisted living here in Central Florida. And that's it. That's it for now. I am also co-host of the Invest Her group with Jimmy. So we're together in that.
Oh, okay. Awesome. That's great. Well, I definitely want to learn more about that, you guys, as well. Maybe in a couple minutes, you can kind of give us a little plug about it, and any of the ladies in the room can take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for coming in. And how about you, Eddie?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Nice to see so many familiar faces. I work for iHome Realty. We do a lot of rehabs for the Central Florida area. We've already bought from Josh and Marlena and Frank, and I hope to meet a lot of good people in these meetups, and hopefully COVID will be over soon and we can shake hands again.
Yeah, absolutely. I know I'm kind of missing that. And I'm very introverted, so I don't mind networking at home on my phone. And Angie and I were talking about this earlier, how we can be in our pajamas and not have to go anywhere and nobody knows, and don't tell anybody that we're in our pajamas. But it's such a awesome thing to be able to be here on Clubhouse and be able to connect with you all. So thank you again for all being here. And, you know, we do have about 6 minutes left and then I'm going to have to end the room. So I just want to kind of open it up to anybody that wants to talk about anything. If anyone has any questions about anything that we've discussed this evening, or if you need any, you know, references, connections with people networking, that sort of thing, then please just go ahead. I'll just kind of mute my mic and anybody is welcome to jump up and chat.
So I will say that anybody who's looking for networking, this Saturday in the Winter Park Chewies, if you're going out and about, if you're not, I totally understand. We will have a meeting there in the back room. We do it the second Saturday of every month, 11 a.m. at Chewies in Winter Park. It's called the Central Florida JB Meetup. So it's on Facebook and all that, but it's just an opportunity to get out and talk about joint ventures and ways we can all work together.
I love it. That's awesome. And what time is that?
11 a.m. We say till noon, but we're usually there closer to like 2 because everybody likes to hang out and meet. So
sure. In the morning,
just
afternoon.
as a quick, quick input. I was gonna go ahead and follow and find you on the Instagram, but I don't think your profile is set up on that.
For who? Sean?
For Sean. Sorry, because now I can write it down. What was the Winter Park?
So it's the Winter Park Chewies on 1792. It's 170 South Orlando Avenue. We meet at 11 a.m. in the back room off the bar. And they get the whole room.
Okay.
But I have not set my profile up on here yet, and I need to do that because I do have Instagram and Twitter and all that. So that'll be my assignment for first thing in the morning.
There you go. Yes, make sure your Clubhouse profile has ways for people to contact you for sure. Because it's you know, I love Clubhouse, but it is missing that messaging element. So you definitely really have to have something else connected in your profile for people. But that's awesome. So, you know, I wanted to ask Frank as well. I know you mentioned that you're doing something this weekend, a training. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Thanks, Marlena. We're on Friday and Saturday, we're doing a lot of different types of trainings for agents. And on Saturday, we're doing a segment on investing and helping real estate agents become investors. And so we'll be talking through what that looks like and, you know, some of the basics of that. And I appreciate the leader over the group that's trying to get, you know, their real estate agents, to your point, you know, the average person doesn't earn a lot of income, and to get them thinking in a different way to start, you know, keeping assets. So that's going to happen on Saturday, and I'm really looking forward to that. That should be fun.
And is that something open for somebody like Trixie to come in?
Yeah, it's like a ticketed event, and I think anyone that's EXP agent is able to come. So if Trixie, if you're interested, I'm happy to connect with you offline, and I think there's still a few tickets left.
Yeah, I would definitely be interested. So I'll go ahead and message you. Thanks.
Okay, awesome.
All right, and we have just a few minutes left. So ladies, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about your group and when you're hosting your next event, and we'll just kind of wrap up from there unless anybody else has a remaining question at the end.
Sure. Our group is the investor community. It was built for women only, and the main goal is to create a financial free and balanced life. It's created by Andres Ellie and Elizabeth Faircloth. and they have meetups all over the country. And virtual event is going to be on this Thursday coming up at 6:30, and we're going to have Melissa Johnson talking about how to create digital marketing. So she is the ex-wife of the creator of the Lead Propeller, which is the competitor of the Carrot Investor. So that's who we're going to have on our meetup this Thursday.
She's out of Texas, is that right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she's out of Texas. She's done more than 1,000 flips.
Yeah, I interviewed her for our podcast actually a couple of weeks ago. She's a really neat lady. That's awesome.
Oh, awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So we're going to have her, and it would be awesome if we have the ladies here to join. Yeah, you can find us on Facebook.
Oh, sorry, Jenny. I think I accidentally muted you. There was some sound going on. I hit the wrong button. You have to unmute yourself.
I think.
Jenny, can you hear me?
Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, Jenny, I'm so sorry. I accidentally hit your mic. I'm so sorry.
Like, did this whole thing go dead? No, that's okay. I was just telling, the ladies, they can join us on Facebook, the Investor Community Orlando. If you just search it, you'll find it, and you can join that community. And there's also the Real Estate Investor Community is the national one, and there's just women all over the country connecting and networking and talking about deals, and it's been pretty awesome. Because what's great about it too, just like this on Clubhouse, you can kind of jump in on any of the meetings anywhere happening, because everything's virtual right now. So we do it monthly on the second Thursday of every month for Orlando, but we're interviewing people all over the country. So I'm really excited about seeing where this is going to go. And I know it's really grown a lot for Liz and Andressa. They started out, I think, in November. There were only 32 groups, and I think they're up to 45 across the country and still growing.
That's awesome. Well, very cool. And I just wanted to kind of make the point too, for any guys out there that might have, a reluctant spouse, that might be a great group for you to get your spouse connected with, so that she can be around other ladies that are active and doing these sorts of things. So, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. And I see Colorado, Paul there, or I think that's you. Yep, it is. I'm so sorry, but we're actually getting ready to close the room here. We're going to go over into Brian Tripp's room. He's doing a wholesaling class this evening that I am supposed to be participating in as part of his REI Live initiative. So I'm so sorry not to host you to come up here for our group, but we do this every Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern, and we would love to have you back next week. And actually, I do want to ask you real quick, Paul, are you investing in the Orlando area or Central Florida? I'm just kind of curious. And I don't know if my Clubhouse is working here. I'm trying to bring you up on stage. Oh man. Well, I'd like to have you come in and talk about the things that you do, and my Clubhouse is locking up, so I don't know what the problem is, but I'm going to have to just go ahead and end the room for this evening. But thank you all so much for joining me, and please, come over into Brian's room next. It's REI Live. He's going to be talking about wholesaling this evening. I forget the topic, but if you can hear my voice, I hope to see you there and or next week, and feel free to reach out to me in the meantime. I hope you all have a blessed evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you, Marlena.
Thanks, Marlena.
Good night.
All right, goodbye, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.